bitches, every city in my tribe. Look behind. Booty dominate the world, peaches ripe.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Not too bad. Not too bad. You have a good day?
Yeah, so far so good.
Cool, cool. So what's on your mind today?
I'm just getting ready to do some work, so I thought while I did my makeup, I would do some debates.
Oh, okay. I love debating as long as it's respectful.
Yeah, of course.
So do you wanna speak about abortion? It's such a sensitive subject.
Sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, what do you got for me?
I don't think you're gonna like what my opinion, but because I'm a Christian and I believe that life is sacred.
What does religion have to do with it?
Religion. I'm not speaking about religion at all. I'm speaking about my belief that life is sacred and my belief that life starts at conception and my belief that it's not just a lump of cells but it's a human living being, very 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 early on. Very early on, like within the first few within the first few days when it starts having a tiny little heartbeat and it feels pain. I believe that it's not the mummy's body. I believe that it's a body all on its own, a human mind, body, and soul.
So, why does a fetus's right to live supersede a woman's bodily autonomy? I guess would be my first question.
Because I think I've already answered that. Because the what I'll say it again, that it's not the mummy's body. It's a completely separate living human being with a mind, body, and soul. It's not mommy's body.
So, once there's a fetus in it, I no longer own my uterus.
No, of course you own your uterus, but you don't have the right to terminate a living being, which is not your
So,
uterus.
abortion is just defined as the deliberate termination of pregnancy. So, if I own my own uterus, wouldn't I have the right to decide how my uterus is used?
Yes, and I support your choice to choose how your uterus is um, treated. But I think where we can't seem to where we have where you and I seem to have a bit of a blockage is I keep saying it's not your uterus. It's a living human being with a mind, body, and soul.
Have you heard of the court case McFall v. Shimp?
No.
So McFall had a bone marrow disease, and in order to survive, he needed a bone marrow transplant. And the only match that he found was his first cousin, Shimp. But Shimp did not want to give McFall his bone marrow. So
Mm.
McFall sued Shimp and tried to compel the courts to make him give him his bone marrow, because without it, he would die. And the courts ruled in Shimp's favor that that McFall does not have a right to life that would require Shimp's bodily autonomy to be violated. Do you think the court
Yeah.
made the correct decision?
Um. I'm just the show. It's a little bit confusing, the names. Are you saying that okay? So the court decided you can't kill someone else just to take their bone marrow so that you can live. Is that what the court ruled on?
No, Shimp wouldn't have died. He just would have. He just wasn't forced to give his bone marrow to McFall, even if it resulted in McFall's death, which McFall did die because he didn't get it.
Oh, no, no, no! You can't force someone to give a part of their body that they don't want to give. I think the court ruled correctly. Yes, you can't force someone to give a piece of your own body, because I believe in body autonomy and the right to choose of your own body. And I think
So
that
how is
we keep.
pregnancy any different?
Sorry, say again.
How is pregnancy any different? Because essentially you're forcing women to give up their uterus without
Oh,
their
okay.
consent.
Okay, I don't think that we can continue this debate, because we stuck because I keep saying the same thing, that it's not the mummy's body. It's not the
You
mummy's
did
uterus.
say
This
I
is
owned my own uterus. And so why can't I choose to deny the resources of my uterus if I don't consent?
so okay. So we seem to be stuck because I keep saying that it's not the mummy's body. This is a completely separate entity with a mind, body, and soul, with a little heartbeat, and feels pain. And it's not
So
the
was
mummy's
McFall.
uterus. It's another person. It's another person.
So was McFall. McFall was a grown man.
Yeah, but McFall, he wasn't. He wouldn't die if he gave his bone marrow. He wouldn't die, right?
McFall needed the bone marrow. Shimp was the one who would have been required to give it. And McFall did die because his cousin did not give him his bone marrow. He died 6 weeks after the court ruled against him.
So okay, so Shimp refused to give his bone marrow, correct?
Correct.
And if Shimp gave his bone marrow, he would die.
If Shimp, no, he would not die.
So then how can you equate this to abortion? Because abortion is termination of a life. How would
So
it?
Shimp in this scenario is the pregnant person. The bone marrow is the uterus, and McFall is the fetus. So McFall did not get the bone marrow. He was not allowed to use the uterus by Shimp, who is the pregnant person, and he died because of that,
Okay,
which you
so
said the court ruled correctly. So when
uh,
applying
uh,
that to pregnancy, I don't see how now you're saying that there's some that the mother doesn't have that same bodily autonomy.
explain to me how you think that this court case equates to the to a termination of a pregnancy.
So just like Shimp owned his bone marrow, me, a pregnant woman, or just a woman, owns my uterus. And I have the right to terminate the use of my uterus if I don't want the fetus to use it. Just like Shimp said, I don't want to give you my bone marrow. And that did result in McFall's death. Which, like in abortion, it does result in the death of the fetus.
Okay. So I'm saying that he was a little. He was a he if he gave his bone marrow, then his cousin would have lived.
Correct.
And he chose not to give his bone marrow because he said, no, it's my body, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't really go into the specifics of why he denied it.
Oh, he didn't go into the specifics why he denied it, but he could have. He had
The case transcripts. This is a 1978 case. It didn't really go into the specifics, but
okay. So
essentially,
he had the ability to save his cousin by giving him some bone marrow, and he was so selfish to say, I don't want to give you my bone marrow, I'd rather you just die, right? Well, that's what it sounds like to me. I know I'm putting it in a very simplistic, nasty way, but I think that's what it sounds like to me. It's like, I don't want to give you my bone marrow because it's mine, you just go die. That's how it sounds to me.
I mean, you can take that. I mean that you can take that take if you want, but you agreed that the court ruled correctly. So I'm wondering why, if you have this logic in this instance, you don't have this logic when it comes to pregnancy.
I've never had it put to me that way before, to be honest. I've never had it put to me that way before, but I do think that it's different because um they were cousins, and I do think it's selfish as well because he had the ability to save his cousin, and he said to his cousin, just die. So you see, there's a big difference between legal and moral. It might be legal, but it's not moral at all. Do you see the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that difference, but we are talking about abortion in terms of policy. Um, and it was just kind of my way to show you how, like, why does a fetus have a right to life that supersedes the pregnant person's bodily autonomy? And
Well,
so I
you know
gave you
what?
an example where we agree it's even a person. It's a full grown man in McFall v. Shim.
Mm. Wow, that is cool that I got to speak to you tonight because I've never had it put to me that way before. But as I say, I would say there's a very, very big difference between legal and moral. And I would say, yes, I feel that the court ruled correctly on a legal basis. But I think on a moral basis, I think it's a major, major moral violation because I mean, and I'm sure you'll agree with me as well. If he had to give some of his bone marrow to his cousin, he would have been fine. He would have lived, and his cousin would have lived. I think it was very selfish of him to not want to save his cousin's life. I think that life should always be our number one priority. And I think that if you are so selfish to say no, that's mine and I don't want to give it to you, even though there won't be any negative implications for me. See, I think I would have been a hero if I had have donated my marrow to keep my cousin alive. I think I would have been a hero.
So
And I think
we
sorry.
must, like, so that was my analogy for, you know, why bodily autonomy is important. But now if we're looking at pregnancy versus Shimp, you know, he donates his bone marrow, his cousin's fine. You know, maybe the surgery was a little bit evasive, maybe there was a long recovery time, I don't know. But you
Mhm.
must acknowledge that too, that pregnancy is more of a reasonable care than just donating bone marrow.
Yeah, exactly. I think that if the child, the baby is completely helpless and 100% reliant on its mother. And I think that the
Hey,
mother has,
maybe I don't phrase that correct. That pregnancy is more evasive than just donating bone marrow.
well, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think that it's a mother's moral obligation to allow her child to live
Why?
because of morality. You see, we know the difference between right and wrong because we have a conscience and we can feel it in our hearts when we do something that's wrong. We can feel it in our hearts, and that's because of our conscience, and our conscience teaches us what morality is.
Well,
And I think
I
that
feel abortion is moral. I don't think there's anything immoral about it.
uh, well, I would respectfully not believe you. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it's probably wrong of me to tell you that I don't believe you, but honestly, from human to human, from heart to heart, I don't believe that any human could believe that because
Why?
I think that you have a conscience just like I do, and I think that
I do.
if you have the I know you do, of course you do. That's what I'm saying, you do. And if you have the ability to allow someone to live, I think that would obviously be your moral obligation.
No, I mean, if we look at a majority of abortions, they happen prior to 13 weeks. And if I'm denying my bodily resources to something that can't even survive outside the womb, I don't see anything immoral about that.
Well, how can you see? My question would be, how can you not think it's immoral if you have chosen to terminate a life which you could have saved?
Well, life has a lot of nuance, doesn't it? Like an apple on a tree is alive? Is it immoral to pick that apple?
I see. I think there's a very, very big difference between a human life and the life of an apple.
And what difference is that?
The difference is that we are made in the image of God and an apple isn't.
See, so now this is just kind of a backdoor for your religious beliefs to come through, which
I
I
think,
mean,
yeah,
you have to understand that not everyone gets their morality from religion.
well, I don't get my morality from religion either. I get my morality from what's in my heart and what's on my conscience. And I feel that my conscience would tell me that it's wrong if I had the ability to allow someone to live,
Well, I'm
and I
just
chose,
asking why humans are different than picking an apple from a tree, and you went to religion. So if that's not what it is, can you give me a different answer?
I did give you a different answer. I said to you, if you don't want religion, then you can have what's in my heart and in my conscience.
Right, but that doesn't answer my question. What makes humans different from picking an apple from the tree?
Because humans have a mind and a body and a soul, and fruit doesn't.
So what do you mean by mind, body, and soul? Like, I mean, a soul is not a scientific definition, and even religious people can't identify when a soul enters the body. The brain is not even developed in a fetus until 24 weeks to where it can actually sustain bodily processes. So if we
Yeah,
take
but
that marker, then something without even the developmental capabilities of being an actual person, I don't see what's immoral about terminating that.
well, I think that you possibly complicating things more than what they need to be. I think if you just simplify it a little bit more and we come back down to what's in our heart and what's in our morals, we'll know that it's morally wrong to terminate a life that we could have saved.
I disagree that to simplify the situation, I just think that fits your narrative more, where I think there's a lot more nuance and there's a lot more philosophical arguments that we can have here. Because if we look at someone who is brain dead and just being kept alive by machines, is it immoral to turn those machines off?
Well, how would that relate to pregnancy, to an
Because that
abortion?
is essentially the similar state that a
Well,
fetus is in
it's not,
prior
because
to
if
viability.
if if someone's in a coma and they are suffering with pain, then that's not the same as an abortion, because the baby's not, there's no suffering that the baby's going through. Maybe if we do terminate a life because they're suffering, that might be the moral thing to do, but there's no suffering with an abortion. The baby is happy and
Being
healthy
in a
and alive
coma
and
and being
feels
brain
pain.
dead are two different things.
No, I think you're comparing apples with oranges here. I think that that if we stay with the simplistic morals and what's in our hearts and what's in our conscience, at the end of the day, if you have the ability to allow someone to live and you choose that it's more convenient for you to terminate a life, I don't think that you or I have the authority to be terminating another human life. And I'll give you an example. Like, the fetus does have human rights within the mother. If a
What?
boy
What right?
if a boy gets a girl pregnant and the boy doesn't want to be a dad and he maybe kicks the mum in the stomach and the fetus dies, he'll be done for murder. So the fetus does have human rights within the body.
Well, no, technically, I mean, number one, it would depend on the state, at least in the United States. I don't know if you live here. But number two, that also goes into with consent, where when it comes to abortion, the pregnant person is not consenting for the fetus to use her uterus. Where the man kicking the woman in the stomach, he is essentially taking the consent that she has given to the fetus and taking that away from her, which is a violation.
Correct.
And I
But
think
that
that's a
doesn't.
terrible comparison to make.
Well, no, because again, you're comparing apples to oranges. My point is that the fetus has
Oh.
human rights within the mum's body. I'm not talking
It
about
does not.
well, well,
What
it obviously does, because if the dad gets done for murder, and because the fetus dies, then that would mean that the father's violated a human life.
Again, it really applies on context here, because if someone went to kill a pregnant woman and her fetus as she was walking into an abortion clinic, I'm sure the defense attorney could argue that, hey, she was already going to terminate the pregnancy anyway. So that would be a valid argument. It really, the consent of the pregnant person does matter when it comes to pregnancy. And in your analogy, that consent is violated, where in my analogy, it is not.
I think it takes us back again to the major difference between legal and moral. It might be legal for the clinic to terminate the pregnancy, and it's immoral for the dad to terminate the pregnancy via violent means. But I think that morality and legality is two completely different things. And I think that if you choose to terminate a human life that you could have saved, I think that's immoral. And I think that you and I are gonna just disagree on that one.
Okay. Well,
But
thanks so much for coming on, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you for talking to me, and yeah,
You're very
welcome. You've given me different angles of the whole thing to think about, and
excellent.
As I say, I've never had it put to me that way before, and that's a very, very thought-inducing way of putting it. But as I say, I just think that, like, I'm obviously pro-life, and I would say I'm pro-choice, but I'm pro-choice for the child. Like, I want the child to choose, and I think that the child would choose life every time.
Okay. You have a great day. Thank you. You
too. Bye.
He was nice.
I'm so fucking cute, bitch.